Welcome to Season 2 of Black in the Stacks. I want you to think back to the digital magazines of the past that really shaped the culture. Those online spaces that felt like home where we could finally see our realities reflected. That tradition of archiving our lives is so important. And today, I chat with a creator who is carrying that torch forward. Anayo Awuzie is the brilliant mind behind Carefree Magazine, a digital space that is both a mirror and a window into the lives of Black women across the diaspora. The platform shares stories of life, love, adventure, and everything in between from the perspective of the Black woman. In this episode, we discuss what it looks like to evolve that vision by taking Carefree Magazine from a digital platform and turning it into a stunning coffee table book titled Black Women in Bloom. Well, hello. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for meeting with me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited. This is one of the first podcasts I've done, so thank you for extending the opportunity. I'm also equally excited to talk to you.
So, before we dive right into our questions, just kind of give our listeners an overview of who you are, what you've got going on, your background, and what brings you to the show today.
Yeah, so my name is Anayo Awuzie. I am an editor-in-chief, writer, publisher of Carefree Magazine. It is a media company I founded about 5 years ago to tell Black women's stories on life, love, and adventure. We publish personal essays from Black women across the globe on topics on mental health, relationships, dating, career, all of the above. And we're basically giving Black women a space and permission to unashamedly tell their stories. And so we recently published a coffee table book called Black Women in Bloom. And so, yeah, I'm here to talk about that today and very excited to talk about it.
So, yeah, we'll get into the book in a little bit, but
Mhm.
I want to go back to the beginning of Carefree Magazine, right?
Mhm.
What was the spark that you felt or saw, like the void in the media landscape that you felt most compelled to fill, which led you to start Carefree?
Yeah, so I am someone who's always been interested in magazines and the media landscape. I went to school for journalism, and my dream was to always move to New York and, join the fashion world, be a fashion editor. And so during that time, there was a bunch of iterations of what popular media looked like. It was kind of magazines, and then slowly into the early 2000s shifted into blogs and then Tumblr and now Instagram and social media and all that stuff. But there was a moment in time where there was a bunch of these digital publications. Some called like some are Man Repeller, Exo Jane, even Clutch Magazine. These were digital publications created by women, giving space to other women to write personal essays about their lives. And I devoured these sites like every day. I'm like, okay, what's the new story today? What y'all talking about? Like, what did this writer get into? And it just felt like I was getting a real peek into someone's life and getting to learn about the world from another woman's perspective. But a lot of the women and the sites were very white. And not a lot of women of color got the opportunity to tell their stories through these sites. And when they did, you know, get get published, a lot of them would get comments about, how the stories weren't relatable, or how, you would see a lot of the Black female authors who wrote for sites like maybe Exo Jane or Man Repeller, um, get a lot of flack in the comments about, their perspectives not being relatable or true or honest. And Clutch magazine was for Black women, so that was the one space. I don't know. Have you heard of Clutch or remember Clutch?
I lived Clutch
Yes,
magazine. Like
yes.
that was because at its peak, I think I was still physically in traditional libraries. So I would be working
Hmm.
like our information desk and everything. And so when
Yeah.
when there's a lull, right? Like I'm
Well, I don't work no. I was on the
You're
sites, right?
online,
I was
right?
online, right? I wasn't shopping or anything. I was,
Yeah,
edifying my mind. But yes, but no,
right.
it was like Clutch, the griot, like at its peak.
Mhm.
A little bit of BuzzFeed, right? Like I would get bored, like, let me do a quiz, right? Like
Right.
so, those those digital things. But
Yeah.
yes, I miss Clutch so much.
Same, Miss Clutch, and, even for Black men, they had Very Smart Brothers, they had Naked with Socks On. There was just this whole era, but I feel like for Black women specifically, Clutch was really it. And, it was at least a publication giving space and voice to our personal narratives. Also Curly Nikki a bit, but she was more focused on hair. But anyway, so for me, the gap was really like we need more of this space for Black women, and the way that Exo Jane and Man Repeller and even Rookie Mag was taking off for um, white women, I thought, well, why can't Black women have this space as well? And, while we all love Clutch, Clutch also kind of, it was like a mix. It was more like, some pop culture news, celebrity, and then also some personal essays here and there. I was like, we need to just blow it out the water with personal essays because I know personally so many Black women who have stories that, you go to your homegirl's house, you meet up, with your neighbor, you talk to your mom or whatever maternal figure in your life, and everyone just has these stories that are shared orally but aren't really edified anywhere or archived anywhere. And so I wanted to create this space for Black women to tell their stories and be able to say, hey, not I'm not the only person going through this thing, or this is something that I've experienced. I wanted to create a space that was both a mirror and a window into the lives of Black women. And so that was Carefree. And that was the gap I was trying to fill.
And I think even with the name, right? Like the word carefree just kind of carries a specific weight for Black women.
Yeah.
Um, and it just tell us about the name. Like why
Yeah.
carefree?
Yeah. No, it does carry a very specific weight. I think. Well, so when I first started it, I was really inspired by it was 2015 when I first had the idea. So this is like over 10 years ago. And it really was inspired by the Carefree Black Girl hashtag that started getting really popular on Instagram. And a lot of Black women were just starting to celebrate, you know, walking nonlinear paths, kind of being a bit alternative, a little quirky, like basically showcasing that Black women, we are multifaceted and we are not all this one kind of uh, stereotype or image of a woman. Like we all have multitudes inside of us. We're a very dynamic and diverse group. And that's to me what carefree kind of meant. It meant honoring every side of ourselves and also giving ourselves freedom and permission to express all of those sides of ourselves. And so I think that movement for that time, Carefree Black Girl, was, it was really fun. It was whimsical, SZA and Solange were popping and like it was just a
Mhm.
time of like, oh, okay, we're like flower crowns and like we're, wearing our natural hair and all this stuff. But then there was backlash around the name. I forgot. There was actually a really popular essay, and I'm trying to remember who actually wrote it, but like maybe a year after the movement started, there was just some pushback against the whole idea of Black women being carefree because the question was, can Black women be carefree? We are carrying such heavy burdens. Um, Alone literally for our families, most Black women are breadwinners in the home. Within our jobs and careers, we are, some of the most educated group of people and some of the most entrepreneurial group of people, but also the least funded, the least advocated for, and now the most laid off and pushed out of the workforce. And there's all these burdens we carry where it's almost like, how can we be carefree, Um,
Mhm.
but for me, I really wanted to take that word and flip it and say, it's not about, you know, just, some people relate carefree with being careless. It's not about being careless. It's more about giving yourself permission to just be, and permission to rest, and permission to pivot, and permission to try something different, permission to, learn the lesson, to move on, to grow, to like leave something that no longer serves you behind. That's what I see within the word carefree. And I think that's what I want people to feel when they're reading the stories that we publish. It's this spirit of, no matter what we're going through and no matter how deep and dark it can get, there is this light on the other side. And I think a lot of the stories we tell kind of show how Black women are navigating these different experiences, but still making a way out of no way. And so that's to me the carefree spirit and what's behind the name.
Yeah, reading through it feels like, and I've read a couple of the essays that are on the site and everything, but reading through it, it kind of feels like what Clutch could have been if they
Mm,
embraced that real and true and honest side of the multifaceted Black woman, right?
yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
get the point of Clutch was supposed to be entertainment, and entertain
Yeah.
it did. And so when we
Absolutely.
did get those little like sparks of op-ed pieces or personal essays, it was just kind of like, whoa, I want
Mhm.
more of this. But
Mhm.
it is, and it is a business, right? So
Mhm.
they're like advertising dollars count, clicks count,
Right.
views count, shares count. So they were, as most businesses do, you walk that kind of fine line of, I don't want to lean too much this way or that
Yeah.
way because I don't want to alienate the money, because the money is how we pay the people who continue to write for us.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think Carefree kind of um, is that sort of branch out that I kind of saw Clutch wanting to do, but just never made it
Mhm.
that far.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a beautiful extension of something that used to be that now we actually have in the
Yeah.
present. So speak,
Absolutely, picking up
yeah,
the torch from Clutch.
yes, yes,
Absolutely.
yes, yeah. So we know building something like this is never ever easy. Can you talk about um, a major hurdle in the beginning, and then on the opposite side of that, a major win when you felt like the magazine was truly connecting with your audience?
Whew, lots of hurdles, but lots of wins as well. I will say I mean, yeah, what we kind of just spoke about was a big hurdle. The name itself, there was pushback around like, but what does being a carefree, like, how can Black women be carefree? And I was dating someone at the time who was like, and they said, carefree sounds like careless, and I almost changed the name because I was now starting to doubt myself around it, but it really felt like divine that it should be called that. And so I just stuck with it. So that was one of the first challenges. And then, yeah, the next challenge, how am I going to monetize this? I wanted to create community and I wanted to build something with intention, but at the same time, I I pay all of our writers out of my own pocket, self-funded, never have taken any ad dollars. And, the question is, how sustainable is this going to be? Like, how am I going to turn this community that has become really engaged into like something that allows me to continue doing this and not necessarily monetizable, but like I am funded in a way where I don't have to worry about like constantly creating avenues for advertising or sponsorship. So the money question, it was and still is a big one. Like, how do we, sustain this community and make it something that kind of just runs on its own? Because we want to be able to tell stories without having to be like, okay, well, if we say this story, if we're talking about, being bipolar, or if we're talking about, this woman sharing her sex worker story, or her experience as a sex worker, how are advertisers going to feel about that? I didn't want to be, beholden to that. Um, so yeah, those were some of the earlier challenges, is trying to figure that out. Um, and then yeah, just getting the word out there. I dealt a lot with like in the first few years, I think one of the bigger mistakes I made was I thought this was going to be like an if you know type of community. You know, if you found it, you're in, you've found the holy grail, and you know, that's how we're going to grow our community. And it grew really slowly because of that. It wasn't until 2020, maybe late 2023, early 2024 that I was like, no, these stories are really good. I'm paying these writers. They and I both deserve to have this showcased. We deserve to have everyone know about it. We deserve to grow, and we deserve to be an outward facing community that, you know, wants people to engage and learn about it and be aware of of the mission that we're on. So I think those were some of the bigger challenges I faced in the beginning. But then some of the earlier wins were just the validation I got from the writers and the readers. So even with some of the first few stories we published, it was immediately clear that this is something that people have been wanting. Immediately through comments, through emails I received, a lot of writers got their first ever byline through publishing with Carefree and have gone on to write for, you know, a bunch of publications. And then readers would always, you know, oh my God, this is so relatable. Oh wow, like this story, like, you know, made me feel seen, or you know, seeing my byline in Carefree like has, you know, brought me out of depression. Like someone literally said that to me. And so
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's just been like that, getting that really early on was just really validating and made me feel like, okay, yeah, let's keep going with this. And so that was an early win that just sustains me. And I get those comments all the time now, and they continue to sustain me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you've been in operation 5 years, yes?
Yes, 5 years
Okay.
officially.
So 5 years of working, building, grinding, establishing this huge community. Why did now feel like the right time to transition into a physical coffee table book versus just publishing the works online?
Mm, yeah. Another divine ordained God. Like it's just one of those things. Um, so back to the monetization thing, I felt like I was getting to a point where we were really growing and people were approaching me saying, "Hey, you know, you should turn this into a conference. You should run ads. You should start an event series, a paid event series," you know, giving me all these business ideas to basically monetize the community, something I had been fighting for years and grappling with for years. But it was getting really loud. And so it got to the point where I was like, okay, maybe I should do that. Like maybe I should, you know, figure out a way to monetize this in a way that, you know, it makes money, it's passive income, stuff like that. Um, I ended up joining a business accelerator, the Madam CJ Walker New Voices Pace Boot Camp, which is run by Essence. They own it, and they own New Voices, and then New Voices runs the program. And you know, it's for Black female entrepreneurs. And I really just joined to try to learn about business and try to see, okay, what can this publication, what can a media company kind of do to earn money. And doing that program made it abundantly clear that I did not want to do not nan of that, none of that. I didn't want to do any of it. And I just was like, like nothing is speaking, none of this is speaking to me. And
Yeah.
so there was a mentor that, you know, you're assigned a mentor when you're in the program. And I was talking to him about it, and he was just like, you know, you don't have to do that. You know, you sound like more of a mission-based founder, like you're very clear on your mission. And, you know, when people kind of engage with your brand, you want them to understand the mission and feel a certain way. And, you know, you want to have more impact versus more money. And I was like, yes. And so when he kind of told me about that, it just gave me so much permission to like divest from this whole idea of, you know, these more traditional ways of like how people typically pivot into making money. And then literally just, you know, like I said, I believe, you know, God just dropped it in my lap. I just kept hearing book, do a book, create a book. And I've always wanted to write a book, but this felt like a different sort of assignment. It was like, no, like, take the stories that you've already done. They're really good. These are beautiful, stories that have changed some women's lives in just reading them and in writing them. And you need to archive them and put them in an anthology. And so that's literally how the book idea came, and it felt so aligned. I literally, once I got that assignment, I was just like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. And that, was 2024. And so over the past like year and a half, I've just been like, okay, how is it going to look? Where are we going to pull the stories from? Who's going to be in it? What's it going to look like? You know, and yeah. So that's where the book idea came from. It was really intuition, and I'm going with my gut, and yeah, it hasn't strayed me far so far. So yeah.
So the book is called Black Women in Bloom,
hmm
and it features what, 30 essays
Yeah.
from different parts of the diaspora.
hmm
How hard was it for you to kind of first of all find the voices that you wanted,
Yeah.
and then secondly narrow it down to just 30?
Yeah. Well, it actually wasn't too difficult to find the voices because all of the, well, I would say about 80% of the stories that we published in the book were already published on Carefree. So we had the stories. It was more so going through all of them, which at that point it was about 200 essays that we
Ooh.
went through to narrow down to 30. So I guess it was a little hard because they're all really great. But um, I think for me, it was like, okay, I wanted to make sure that one, yes, it is truly the diaspora. Like, I didn't want it to be, well, Carefree has writers from across the globe, and so I didn't want it to feel like, oh, it's just a bunch of like writers from Africa, or everyone's, from the US. I wanted to make sure we had Europe, we've had writers from South America, Africa, North America. I really wanted it to feel diasporic, where everyone is kind of represented. There's a really good balance of voices in the book. And then I also wanted to make sure it was originally going to be a travel book. So it was originally going to be like a Black girl travel anthology, because I haven't seen, and someone listening to this might take this idea and run with it, but I haven't seen, there is one, and
Yes.
it's called Go Girl.
Yep.
Yeah, by Elaine. Yes, okay, you know. I actually met her in Oakland recently, and
Oh,
she's really
cool.
lovely. Yeah. So, there is hers, and she's, published that decades ago, but it has the likes of Alice Walker in it, and um, other really like prominent Black female writers of the time. And then I think she's even done a follow up to that. But that was the only one I saw. And so it's going to be a travel, like, let's, make an anthology of travel stories and, kind of fill that gap. But then when I thought about it, I was like, well, this is the first book we've done. It's the first anthology. Let's do something that really encapsulates Carefree. And really, like, this is like our magnum opus of who we are as a publication, as a brand, and our storytelling point of view. And so that's how it kind of came about. But yeah, it wasn't too hard to find the writers because we had them already. We really just wanted to make sure, okay, everyone is represented, like, you know globally. We have people from all over. And then two, like, the stories kind of touch on, in my opinion, and I put it together, so it's very much from my perspective of like what kind of Black women
Mhm,
all kind of either are going through, go through, or maybe from a
yeah,
perspective that we haven't really seen as much.
mhm,
So there's stories in there about like PCOS, something that a lot of Black women deal with. But then there's also stories in there about like sex work, which, you could argue that there are a lot of Black women who like know sex workers or have been in that industry. There's stories about career. There's stories about mental health, but like, mental health from angles that maybe we haven't explored as Black women. So it's like a good balance of like things that a lot of us have dealt with, and then things that as Black women we haven't really heard this perspective as much. And so that's kind of how I wanted to source the stories. And I truly think the collection is very dynamic. And for people reading, yeah, you're going to learn a lot. So, yeah.
Cool. Is there a story in the book that resonates with you as you are now in this phase or this blooming phase that you're in right now, or do they kind of all represent you in one way? Like, is there one that you just kind of constantly go back to whenever you need a boost or a
Mm,
reminder or anything like that? Because
mm,
usually when I read like anthology books like that, one, the
mhm.
first pass I'm reading obviously to read the book.
Yeah.
Um, but then I'm also a person who is a staunch kind of hardbacky kind of person, right? Because
Yeah.
I like
Oh,
that I like that extra space because
that's
I'll
funny.
doodle notes in the margins.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that do that too, but yeah, I'll doodle
Mhm.
notes in the margins. So yeah, the first pass is always just to read it, to be reading it.
Yeah.
And then the second one is going back and finding the ones that fit for how whatever I'm in, whatever moment I'm in,
Mhm.
um, right then, so I'll know I can always kind of go
Go
back
back
to
to
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So are
Yeah.
there any like that in the book for you?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of them, there's some stories in the book that just speak from a completely different perspective that I like I'm more so learning versus like, ooh, this is like, okay, I relate to this. This is my story. But there are some in the book that like represent different stages of life that I've been in personally. There's a story about like a woman who moved home at 30 and how it freed her to dream again. And I have moved home countless times to like start over and pivot again. And that story kind of gives you permission to like, there's no shame in having to start over and maybe take a couple steps back so you can take more steps forward. Um, there's stories about like escaping the rat race of corporate, and you know, I've done that also. And I would say like a lot of the stories speak to like different versions of past selves. Um, and in whole speak to like who I am now and the stories that I want to continue to tell in the future. I also have a story that I wrote for the book, and um, I would say like that story, obviously, because I wrote it, is probably the most, it really is like, okay, if you want to know more about like me as a person, like that story really shares like, okay, this is how I came to be. And so yeah, I feel like honestly, all of the stories, one thing we did with the book itself was we pulled quotes from each of the stories. And each of the quotes that we pulled were like specific quotes for me that like hit. Like whenever I read those quotes, I'm like, oof, yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. So I'm more so going back to the quotes, and like when I know that when we finally get this book physically, those are the parts that I'm really gonna be like, okay, when I need to just quickly like bounce back, get back to myself, hit this quote, hit this quote. And the stories themselves for me are a bit more like, let me like jump into someone else's world and kind of like see how, Black womanhood is from her angle.
Mhm.
And for me, that's how the stories kind of serve themselves.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the I mean, obviously the popularity of social media growing has enabled people to be able to tell more stories.
Hmm.
Um, but I also love a strategically curated set of stories that kind of take you on um, an emotional journey,
Yeah.
as well as ones that kind of make you pause in in the middle of reading it, like, "Whoa, this might be too, I might have to come back to this a
Right.
bit." But yeah, I love good books like that, and
Mhm.
it's and I know like painstaking details it takes to kind of make sure that they flow the right way, right? Like you don't
Oh,
want
yeah.
to just be like heavy, 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 or light, light.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
takes time to kind of put them together in that flow.
Yeah.
Um, the book cover is online.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. I've
Yeah.
seen some, yeah, just snippets of like the layout inside as well.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that process, right? Like you've picked your authors, you've gotten the essays, you've pulled the
Mhm.
quotes, as you said. How did you get the visual vibe just right for this project?
Ooh, shout out to my designer, Akila. Shout out to Akila. Honestly, when I first started this book, I was like, me and Canva, we about to thug this out. We're about to make it happen. Like,
Shout out to
and
Canva.
yeah, quickly learned that that's not gonna happen. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like, at least for the vision that I had, I really wanted this to be like, because it is a coffee table book, so on one part, it's something you can read, like, it's full of stories that I really do hope people take the time to read, but at the same time, it is like an art piece, it's an ornament, it's, it's something you're gonna display in your home, and, it has to be beautiful and gorgeous, and so, I ended up working with this designer, based in Paris. She's a Black girl, uh, gorgeous work, very modern and contemporary. And um, the vision was, we originally were doing the concepts. It was all about um, this idea of like literally playing with the whole concept of a flower blooming. So, what are the actual growth stages of a flower? You start with your
Mhm,
seeds and then you kind of cultivate it, and there's like, it starts to sprout, and then there's some growth, and then, pollination, reproduction, and then find the final bloom. And so, literally, the chapters are seeds, sprouting, growth, pollination, reproduction, thorns. Someone in our
mhm.
carefree community was like, there should be a thorns chapter because, not everything is sweet. And I was like, okay, bet. So we added the thorns chapter and then the bloom at the end. And so that kind of basically informed everything in terms of the design and layout, the stories. We organized each of the stories within those chapters. We grabbed stories that, felt a little thorny. We grabbed stories that felt like, okay, what does pollination mean? What does reproduction mean? You're kind of now blooming and you kind of need something to help you grow, like within community, maybe with, hobbies or travels. So we were really intentional in how we thought about those chapters and then organized it in that way. Carefree's brand is also really colorful. It's very like, pink and orange and gradient. And I wanted to bring that into the book. So there's a ton of color. When you see it, it's very colorful and decorative. And there are literally flowers sprouting on every single page. And I put out a call to Black illustrators and photographers and said, hey, this is the project, we're looking for artwork. And so a bunch of people responded, and we got some really great artists in the book as well. One artist that I learned about maybe like 2 years ago and like have just been following her work. She's in the book. Her name is Delita Martin, and she's kind of like it's like a mixed media artist, and she so graciously provided some work, a painting that we have in the book. Donatella Jackson, who is the late Jesse Jackson's granddaughter, she has some artwork in the book. It's actually one of my favorite pieces, and if you pre-ordered the book, you're gonna get a 8x10 art print of her piece. So yeah, it was very intentional, and we were, really thinking about embracing femininity and womanhood, and like, the stages of a flower is kind of like the stages of how Black women are navigating through life. And so when you see the book, it'll be very clear like how that shows up. And Akila put it all together, and she saw the vision that I shared with her, and she really understood the assignment. So very grateful.
That's that's cool. I like
Yeah.
when people that are a part of your team actually share the vision,
Yeah. Oh
and
my
you can
gosh.
trust them to execute
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Trust me, I I know all about people not understanding the vision. So yeah, this was a blessing.
So I know this is the first book, but have you thought any about whether or not this is a standalone kind of item? Will you continue in an anthology series, or just kind of branch out into, like, maybe it's a book of all thorns, maybe it's a book of all,
Mm,
blooming, something like that?
yeah.
Have you thought that far, or are you just trying to get through pre-orders?
I think I'm trying to get through pre-orders, but I have thought about I have thought like the most I've thought about so far is, ooh, maybe I'll introduce a different cover for the book, because I think you've mentioned you saw the cover. Like the main cover is this like green, green and orange. There's a black woman silhouette on the front with this flower, these two flowers kind of blooming from her, and it's very maximalist, very bright, very colorful. And so, I know a lot of the girls like, they like a neutral, they like a beige, they like a tan or black and white. So I was like, oh, maybe we could release a cover down the line that's like speaks to that. It's like, same book, but more of a neutral palette cover. But yeah, for now, I think this, at least right now, in this moment, this will be the one book that we do. If it goes crazy, if it somehow like just like blows up, maybe that's like a good sign to maybe do something else. But yeah, I think it would be something completely different. Like I don't know if we would stick on the bloom theme. Maybe we would then pivot to like, kind of like chicken soup for the soul. Like, okay, what's
Yeah.
a completely different topic we can talk about this time? Like maybe it's from the perspective of, daughters or
Mhm.
I don't know, like teachers. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Or do the travel book. I don't, yeah. I haven't thought that far, but I guess depending on how this one does, I could be convinced to do another one. This was definitely a labor of love. So I'm very much like, yeah, this is it. But I'm hoping this one will stand the test of time and just kind of, continue to be something that people are drawn to throughout the years. So
Yeah, so tell us about the Bloom sessions, the ones that are coming up, and then just what they are, what people who are going to attend can expect, and then the energy that you want to have in those spaces.
yeah, so I'm very excited for the Bloom sessions. It's technically the book tour, but I wanted to do something different and not just like, hey, I released a book, come hear me talk about it. No shade to authors who do that. I think, that's just, of course, people want to come and hear about your book.
Standard.
Yeah, I just wanted to do something a little different and speak to like the theme. And so every city is going to be a little different. There will be some cities that will just be straight up. I released a book. I'm going to come and talk about it. But we are going across the country to all of basically wherever the Carefree subscribers are at. That's where I'm going. So we're going to Brooklyn. Well, we're kicking this off in Atlanta at Black Writers Weekend, and that's July 31st through August 2nd. And then from there, I go to New York. Um, I'll be in Brooklyn and Albany August 6th and then August 8th. And then I head over to back to LA where I currently live. August 16th, I'm collaborating with Literature Noir and Black Girl Rising. And we're going to have like a Black Girl Archive Day. And we're going to, talk about the book, but also talk about the importance of telling your story and archiving it. And so we're going to actually create some personal archives that day. And then we'll also, people will leave with their own personal bouquet. And we'll, of course, sell the book. So that'll be a really fun day. And then from there, the launch party will be in Oakland on August 21st, which I'm super excited about. I'm partnering with like this local florist, but we're going to do something a bit more intentional. So in the book there is this community bouquet, and it's basically all the writers either drew a flower or took a picture of a flower, and we created a bouquet of everyone's flowers, and it's gorgeous. Like, yeah, it's beautiful. And so I wanted to bring that to life. And so at the launch party, we're going to, have people come in, you'll get a prompt card, and it'll talk about like based on the different chapters of the book, like which stage of blooming are you in? We'll have different questions that people can sit with, and it'll be more of a conversation of, discussing the topics that come up in the book within a safe space for Black women. People will pick up a stem for themselves, like create their own mini bouquet, but then we'll also ask people to choose a flower stem to add to the community bouquet. And that community bouquet will become this installation that people can then, take photos with. We can kind of create moments around, I want to be able to create this community bouquet in a few different cities, so that we can see what, each city kind of creates and the vibe and, what stage Black women are in those cities. And so that'll be really fun. And then we'll also have some of the contributors who are in the book do a reading of their stories. And so it'll be a bit more interactive and community based versus just me talking. And then from there, the more TBD dates, but they are confirmed, are I'll be going to Chicago September 5th. Sorry, Seattle September 5th, and then Chicago September, I believe, 13th. And we're gonna have a Carefree Sunday at Zora's place. And we haven't quite figured out what that one's gonna look like, but so far it's called Carefree Sunday, which I love. So yeah, those are the Bloom sessions so far, and they're really like expect to connect with Black women and like having conversations about themes that come up in the book. Let's talk about, how we're, going about healing, how we're going about self-care, how we're going about navigating relationships, how we're going about, maybe pivoting in our lives. And like, I want people to actually talk to each other about these different themes and, we can kind of create something beautiful in each city.
And I think that's a good space for people to be able to do it in.
Hmm.
Because I've seen and I've attended events that said that that's what they were for, but in
But that's not what.
reality, it's not what it was.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but it was a money
Right.
grab, right? Like it was a money
Ah,
grab.
yeah.
And, I might have walked away with a cute little tote bag or something like that, but there wasn't, no, I didn't come
Yeah.
for that. I came for,
Hello, like,
yeah.
yeah. I
So,
and that's a lot of that's a whole nother conversation that's happening right now. It's like, these community events, it's for us, but I'm gonna charge this much and you're gonna get nothing in return.
mhm,
So yeah, a lot of money grabs happening. Luckily, I think, most of these events will be free or low cost.
okay.
Really, the cost is coming from the fact that we are hosting them at all of the events are at Black owned indie bookstores. So LA is at Reparations Club. Brooklyn, we're at Cafe Con Libros. In Seattle, we haven't figured out the location, but I'm partnering with Janara, who is the owner of this like book concept store called Mava. So everything is Black owned, and so it's really just, some of them are like, you pay $5 and that just goes to the bookstore. Some of them, I think will go as high as like maybe $15, $20. And that's for like some of the more expensive stores that are charging us to host. But otherwise, unless you want to get a copy of the book, which will then increase the ticket price, they will be free or low cost.
So we're coming towards the end of our conversation. I just have a few more questions.
Yeah.
But before I ask the questions that I ask of every guest, where is the best place for our listeners to, one, follow along with Carefree as you grow,
Yeah.
and then two, where can they go ahead and pre-order a copy of the book?
Yeah, so to follow Carefree, the best place is Substack. That's where we host the stories, and yeah, that's pretty much where the community lives. So carefree.substack.com, um, and you can subscribe. I don't believe you have to like join Substack to like subscribe, but that's where the stories live, the community lives. We have a chat where we share with each other, talk about things we're publishing, talk about different topics. So that's the best place to follow along. To purchase the book, that one is you would go to our website, carefreemag.com/book. And from there, you can publish the book, or sorry, buy the book. And I believe you can also RSVP to the Bloom sessions, and you can also buy merch. We also have Black Women in Bloom merch. There's a tote bag and a t-shirt. Or you can get the limited edition cover of the book, which a lot of people have been enjoying. So yes, carefreemag.com/book.
And then where can they find you if they just kind of want to reach out to you personally?
Yeah, you can find me on my website, anayoawuzie.com. So literally as my name is spelled, add a .com to it. That is my site. I also work with, writers directly on developing their voice. I help with, one-on-one editing, proofreading, and just coaching for writers. So you can reach out there for that. And if you just want to follow me in general, you can go to my Instagram. I'm Anayo to the so my first name and then Tothe, kind of like Mo to the E to the, like, yeah. So yes.
These are the questions that I ask of every guest.
Yes.
What creative works are currently occupying your time besides you publishing a whole book?
Yeah. Ooh. So two things right now. Well, two books actually. So I just started a book by Alex L. She just published The Company You Keep. And it is her book about basically friendship and relationships. And I literally just started it like, I don't know, 3 days ago, and it has been already like, oh my God, I have pages full of notes. And I think I'm just in a period of my life where I just moved to a new city. And so I'm like, trying to make new friends, reevaluating old friendships. And it's just been putting a lot of things into perspective for me, for sure. So that book I've been like really enjoying. She was at Reparations Club last night, but it was sold out, so I couldn't get in. But yeah, it's just a great book. So been really enjoying that. And then I've been trying to like refresh myself on a lot of Black feminist literature and perspective. And so there's a woman on Substack. Her name is Sasadia, and she runs a Substack called The Gathering. And The Gathering is basically, her and her community just read works of Black feminist literary fiction, nonfiction. They read Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Zora Neale Hurston, Octavia Butler. They just kind of go through the greats and just, read and discuss. And I have just been so inspired by that, that I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna kind of do my own curriculum of like reading and rereading these texts. And so right now I'm reading Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks. And so just like really trying to like, okay, you know, what was the perspective of like Black feminism at that time, and really just reorienting myself around it and taking notes on it. I've realized, as I want to talk more about this book, it is coming from like this Black and Afro feminist perspective. And I want to just better be able to like speak to it and reference it. And so it's kind of like my summer curriculum that I'm kind of going through right now for myself.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. In teaching, we call that avoiding the summer slide for the
Oh,
kids.
okay. I
You're
am
doing your own.
avoiding the summer slide. I'm trying
Yes,
to
you
keep my
are.
brain going. I also wanted to mention one more book.
Yeah.
Casey Mills. She is a self-published author. She's written a ton of books, and I'm reading her book right now, You Could Do Damage. And yeah, it's like I try to read a fiction and a nonfiction. I feel like right now though I'm like heavy on the nonfiction. So I forgot to mention I'm also reading that fiction book, You Do Damage. It's like a
Mhm.
urban fiction, as they call it. But she is someone I interviewed at Black Writers Weekend last year, and she's an amazing author. And yeah, so I'm just like getting into her books.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that balance of like fiction and nonfiction.
yeah.
'Cause at one point I was really heavy into fiction.
Mm,
And then I forget whose autobiography it was, but I think that kind of sparked the nonfiction biography thing. And then I was
yeah.
really heavy into that. So now I have like 8 TBRs going at the same time, which is so the stories start to overlap, and it's just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What am I
Wait, I
reading?
thought
What's
this character. Yeah, what book are you reading? I'm curious.
So I just picked up, it's right next to me, literally. I love Daniel Black, so I got Isaac's
Mm.
son song. So I have
Oh, okay.
that. I'm reading Amy Dubois Burnett's If I Rule the World, so fiction.
Yes, that's on my TBR.
And a bunch of other stuff that I'm just kind of revisiting. I'm rereading of and well, collective essays anyway, but A Bell
Mm.
in Brooklyn by Demetria L. Lucas. I'm rereading that.
Oh,
Yeah.
throwback. Yeah, love
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Demetria.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another one that kind of like, part of the whole
Yes.
digital,
Mhm.
writer blogger that I was kind of following at that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
What's one thing you will always be proud of?
I will always be proud of, um, I'll just always be proud of my advocacy for Black women to tell their stories. Like, I'll always be proud that that's kind of like what's always driving me. And I'm proud of like the different ways in my life I have kind of pushed that mission forward. So whether it's through Carefree or even just through my own writing or through this book or through like my day job, like that's always the mission and that's always something I'm working towards. And I'm really proud of that. Um, and I feel like it is my purpose. And I think for a long time I was like, oh, but like I have to do this newsletter because this is how it's supposed to be and this is how I get the mission out there. But I'm like, no, like this is always kind of my purpose and kind of no matter what avenue I'm doing something in, that's always what's happening. So I'm really proud that um, I was gifted that and it's something I care about and it's something that I've, held steadfast to and have been really intentional about.
I think that's a perfect way to end. So,
Yes.
thank you once again. This has been great.
Yes.
Um, well, you have an incredible afternoon. I know it's still early there because you're on the West Coast. So,
Yes.
enjoy what's left of your morning. Get some brunch if that's what you're doing.
That's absolutely what I'm doing.
I hope you
And
have an
you enjoy
amazing.
your day too. This was
Thank you so
great.
much.
Yeah, looking forward to listening back to it.
For more information, you can visit us online at www.blackinthestacks.com and find us on most social media platforms at Black in the Stacks.